more. Um, Understanding how they behave, what they do, like, and how that translates into their behavior towards your product or towards your solution. That's typically what research is about. And the interesting thing is that you can gather this data in different ways. Understand them differently. There are so many ways to understand these users. That's the very interesting thing about research. Often at times when I'm on a project or like a research project, I use a mix of a lot of tools. And sometimes, because a lot different tools have their own, or different methodologies have their own pros and cons, right? You want some will be able to gather qualitative data better than quantitative, right? Others will be able to gather quantitative data more than qualitative. But I'm going to explain all of this as time goes on. I mean, I said it's typically done at the start of the project, but as I said, it also runs across the entire spectrum too as well. Entire spectrum too as well. So why user research? Number one, you want to create designs that are truly relevant to your users, right? You want to, I mean, there's some applications you use and it feels like, oh, wow. It's like almost like they're listening to you. I know that one application is Figma, right? Every time I use Figma, it feels like, you know, they walked through my mind. You know, I knew that, yes, I wanted this kind of feature. I wanted this kind of functionality on the platform. And then you just wake up one morning and wow, you see it's out there, right? It's because they are really taking research very, very seriously. Like, you would know that, like, they do a lot and lots of research, right? Because features that they push out there are features that people really want. People want to use. Everybody, like, a lot of people love Figma, to be honest. And we have products like that as well that people love, people want to use, it's beautiful, it looks good, and it's also usable. Also, to create designs that are easy and pleasurable to look at. I think I touched on that. To also understand the ROI of your UX of your design. So there's something that happens in where I work, right? And sometimes, like, the head of design is always like, you know what, you guys, we need to show the value of design. We need to show that, okay, design is measuring, basically, like, design is contributing this. And to be honest, the best way is through research. You want to know your before and your after. Okay, before, when we started, before we started a redesign, we had maybe 10 sign-ups per week, right? Upon our redesign, we now have 20 or 100. Yeah, you're only able to measure it if you're keeping track of your data, if you're gathering data. And I mean, these are like reasonable or like very valuable metrics that you can present to stakeholders, and they will know that, yes, design works. Because, to be honest, and I'm not trying to be funny or anything, in this part of the world, a lot of leaders, a lot of stakeholders, management stakeholders, are still very, in terms of design maturity, they're still like, it's still very low, right? They know what design can do. They have a vague idea. They don't understand how it works. So most times, even when you're talking about the experience, to them is like, just create the UI, make it fine, and move on. Do you understand? But if you want to then say, oh, I want to be able to evaluate how creating a better experience for our users improves our bottom line, you need to be able to track. You need to be able to gather data, and gathering data, tracking also has to do with research too as well. When you gather data, the different things you're trying to understand. You're trying to understand who your user is. I already said that, what their needs are, what they want, how they currently do things, and how they did like to do them. I mean, if you have all of, imagine you just knowing that, oh, this product I work on, this is what my user was, this is what they sleep and think about. Why? If you really imagine just shipping out features like that, it's like a fantastic, like, there will be so much adoption of your product, because it's like you're doing exactly what they want. And that's what gathering data can do for you. So when is user research done? I already explained like the different stages in the design thinking process. User research tries to do the following things. You want to identify. User research is also beyond testing products. You also want to identify opportunities. That's what we typically call like proactive research, right? You want to know what is obtainable out there in this field. I'm working in a fintech space. What is the next frontier for fintech, right? Doing a lot of market analysis, just delving into data, information, news, all of that as well. Speaking to users to preempt what they really want, right? That's what identifying does. Discover. So, I mean, when you identify like an opportunity, you also want to just discover what people's challenges or users' challenges around that. Also exploring to that pretty like exploring is like I have a product, I'm exploring ideas, exploring different verticals to solving this particular challenge. Testing, you have a product you want to test, and then monitor. Monitor is we've launched, you understand? And how do we continually monitor users activities on our platform? And I mean, maybe some years back, all of these things were difficult to achieve, but guess what? Now we have tools. Tools are there to help us do this. And I'm going to also introduce you to some of these tools as well. Quickly, let's run to types of research. We have quantitative research. As the name implies, we have quantity. This has to do with research that gathers quantitative data. I want to be able to measure the time that my user takes in performing a particular task. Say, for example, I work on a mobile financial application, banking application. And typically, we want users to be able to send money or transfer money under 1 minute. Do you understand? That 1 minute is a quantitative data, So now finding out, so we want 1 minute, but how many minutes are our users really doing this, right? Trying to gather that the process of gathering that, the amount of time that your user is using to complete complete a transfer is what we call quantitative research, because at the end of the day, you are gathering quantitative data that you can quantify, so it answers questions such as how many people clicked here. Also things like what percentage of users are able to find like your call to action also. So for example, you have like your website, and you say buy now, right? How many people are clicking on it? How many visitors do you have? And how many people are really clicking on the button, right? These are quantities. And you can then do like a calculation to know the percentage and say, wow, only 20% of our visitors are clicking on this button. Why? So that's what we call quantitative research, like being able to quantify it, quantify the data. Then we have qualitative, sorry, not qualitative, it's qualitative. It's opposite of quantity. It's like just, how would I call it? Call it self-research, right? It's not quantifiable, but it gives you a better understanding of why people do something. So the example I gave before, we have a button on our pricing page that says buy now, and we have just 30% of our users, our monthly visitors clicking on this buy now, right? That's quantitative data. Now we want to understand why it's just 30% of people that are doing it. Why not 80%? Why not, why is the percentage not high? By the time you're not digging deep to understand the whys, right? That is what we now refer to as qualitative research, or qualitative research, because you're trying to gather qualitative data. With qualitative data, you are not able to it's not something you can just say, oh, it's 30, it's 40. No, it's more around users' feedback, digging deep into their behaviors, just understanding why they're not doing something, just basically answering your whys, and it cannot be quantifiable. And more often at times you get all of this data from places like interviews, conversations, and I would also tell you how to use your different research methodology when at what point in time, right? Also, attitudinal research. So we have attitudinal research and behavioral research, right? Attitudinal research is like understand and measures people's stated belief. It's like, what will people say? So I ask you now, would you like you have like, so there are two pens, right? There's red and black. And I ask you, I just ask you randomly, like, oh, sorry, what kind of pen do you like? Do you like a blue colored pen or a red colored pen? You can tell me that you like a blue colored pen, right? That's great. But if I then put two pen on the table, you ask me, right? And I say, you ask me, you want to borrow my biro, and I have like maybe like your red pen, and you already said you want red pen though. I have like red pen and I have green pen, and I say, okay, pick from one, just pick one of them, and you pick a red pen or green pen. That is what you now call behavioral data research, because that is behavioral data. The first one is what I like, what I believe I would do. The second one is what I do eventually. So I say that I pick the person, then eventually, the person can say I want a blue biro, but the person eventually picks black biro, right? You will know that, I mean, those are two different data gathering. Sometimes I can walk into a restaurant and I say, oh, I want to eat burger, right? Or something. Then I go to where they're serving food and I see pasta and it's looking good, and I pick pasta. Those are like two different data sets. So both of them worked and they actually go hand in hand, because a lot of times as users, as designers and researchers, we kind of say, oh, users will say they want this. Honestly, they will tell you that I want this thing. But honestly, when you actually put that thing in front of them, what they do is way different. And that is why it's always good to employ research methods that allow you gather both data sets. So that is basically the difference between attitudinal research and behavioral research. Now, let's jump to user research methodologies. As a researcher, what are the kind of things you would do? What are the kind of methodologies or instruments you will be using on a day-to-day basis to carry out your activities? I'm going to run us through this landscape, these dimensions. Remember what I said: behavioral, attitudinal, qualitative, and quantitative, right? Behavioral, what people do; attitudinal, what people say; qualitative is why and how to fix; quantitative is how much, right? This is kind of like, this is basically what I use when I'm trying to identify the research methodology I want to use. You know, do I want to use surveys? Do I want to use interviews, focus groups, things like that? And it looks like theoretical, but trust me, it works. Like if you use it on a constant, if you use it a lot as a researcher, you would see that it helps you make better choices of the kind of tools to use, basically. So I like this picture. I always share this image with anybody that I'm discussing research with. And I think that it just breaks down all of the different research methods into this, right? So I'm going to just touch on some of them. I can't touch on all of them. I'm going to just touch on some of them, especially the most, the popular ones, right? First, usability lab studies. So look at this image on the left-hand side. This is what we call a usability lab study. So what usability lab study does for you is that you have your product or your tool, right? And you have like a lab. You now invite your users to come into your own space, right? To come and use your product. And while they're using your product, you're just observing them. You're seeing what they're doing. You're not talking, you're not engaging them, you're not telling them what to do, right? Because when you're able to observe what they do, what they're going to, how they will behave when giving your product, you are able to, it kind of just simulates what they will do when they're not with you. You get what I'm saying? So that's what usability lab study is. So it's practically usability test, but the lab there means you have set up your own lab. You've told them to come into your own space to carry out that test. Do you understand? We then have moderated remote usability testing. So we have a remote one too. So, I said lab is you're coming in. Remote is you don't have to come in, especially during the pandemic time, right? A lot of remote usability test study had to be done because, nobody wants to move to anybody, right? So you're doing remote over Zoom. You share your screen, or you tell your user to share their screen, and you do that. You allow them carry it. All of these things are called usability tests. It's just the place that is carried out that differs. And also, you also hear things like how they call it, moderated and unmoderated too as well. So this one, these are like they're pretty much the same thing. Moderated means that while you are carrying out, even if you come to my lab, you're carrying it out, I am there, I am looking at you, I am observing you. Unmoderated is I just have a video camera looking at you. Or if it's virtual, if it's like a remote testing session, I just have my screen recording what you're doing, right? But I'm not there to moderate you. But if I'm there to moderate, to see, to observe, to ask follow-up questions later, that's what we call like a moderated testing. All of these tools are very important. They're very useful. I think that they're one of the valuable, like usability test is one of the most valuable tool that you can ever use as a researcher, because it gives you so much information, so much data about your users, right? So let's look at A/B testing. So with A/B testing is another type of research method. So with A/B testing, you're comparing two versions of something, right? So I have two pricing pages, and I want to see how people react to it. One has maybe blue button, the other one has black button or something, or maybe it might not even be button, might be the messaging, buy now or get one now. You're not exactly sure what to do, right? You can do like A/B testing. So what A/B testing does is you carry out that particular design, or that design, you send it to you can send like as an email, to people. Observe if they actually click it, send the other one to a different set of people, look at which one has like the highest click rate, right? And you're able to compare and then make your decisions based on that. That's just A/B testing, right? And as I said, it's more around, it falls into the behavioral section of things, because people are doing, when it comes to doing behavioral things, so you can actually see what they do. In usability test too, it is doing, they are doing it, so it's a behavioral, you're gathering behavioral data, right? Well, let's come down to attitudinal. We're looking at interviews. I think everyone is very familiar with interviews. Interviews run the same way a regular job interview will run. You're asking questions, digging deep into the user's, trying to understand what the user wants, right? With interviews are attitudinal, because they would tell you what they want or what they think they want, right? What they think they want. And you are just asking them, and they say, okay, yeah, so I think that I want this, I want this, I want that. And that is what interviews do for you. But they also help you gather useful qualitative data. You understand? Qualitative data as well. So the next would be surveys. Surveys are here. Surveys are very good for quantitative data and not qualitative data. And that's why I always tell people, use a mix of the two, of both qualitative and quantitative. You cannot just send out surveys and say that, surveys will give you an insight into what your customer would want, but not why they really want it, right? To be able to help you position your product properly. So surveys are very, very good tools, actually, because they also help you gather large data. You understand? Like you said, like 1,000 people filling surveys, but you cannot interview 1,000 people. In fact, Nelson Norman said that when you're interviewing, maybe 5 to 8 maximum, because by the time you begin to hit the 5th person, they're already saying the same thing over and over again. You're already repeating what, like, the initial 4 interviews, the 4 people that you interviewed have said, right? So maximum 5 to 8 for better analysis too as well, but surveys are very good tools, but you also need to know when to use it as well. That's it. Customer feedback. We have some products, some tools where you see them say, give us your feedback. On what scale of 1 to 10 do you want us? Can you recommend our product, right? When you click on 9, you're already giving them data. You understand? Customer feedback, so they can also call you they can call your customer care line to talk to you, to tell you their problem. And that is why, as a researcher, you cannot work in silos. You need to work with your salespeople. Practically I work with people around the organization, because you want to work with your business development people. You want to work with the customer service agents. You want to work with some people that are in charge of the value, like data and value management people, because you want to also hear from them. A lot of them are the interfacing with this client or your customers on a day-to-day basis. So you want to be able to also hear from them. So customer feedback is very valuable. And now we also have applications that are allowing you to embed customer feedback into your application. So they can choose, oh, on a scale of 9, and they click 9, and you're able to calculate your net promoter score based on their value, based on the value that they've imputed. So that is another form of research method. Focus groups. Focus group is like interviews, but with focus group, what you're doing is that you are you're talking to a lot more people in a room, right? You bring them to your room, you're asking them questions, hearing like diverse opinions, diverse mindset, just different mental models. The only difference, more people in the room, you're talking to them, you facilitate the session, getting more insights into what they have to do, right? That's another research methodology. We have card sorting here, we have concept testing. As I said, this class, I cannot touch on everything. And that is why we would be organizing like the 6 weeks class to just delve deeper into all of these things appropriately. But if you are interested in digging deep into user research, please go online and read a lot. Go to, I would recommend some blogs for you where you can just read up one of these things. Now, the thing here to notice this, we have behavioral, we have attitude, I've spoken about interviews, usability tests. See, the thing is that you cannot use one. You can't use one. You use a mix of both. You use a mix. So I can send out surveys with usability testing, right? Or I can have interviews. Okay. I think my internet is bad. Please, can you confirm you can still hear me? I just want to know.
We can hear you.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Thank you. So you're using a mix of both, because guess what? As I said to you, surveys will give you qualitative information. Your users will tell you, for example, you say yes or no. Will you like to do this? For example, you say, and they click yes. But why? Why did they click yes? You want to know why, right? Surveys cannot exactly give you that very well. So what you want to do is also mix it with interviews. So you've seen a pattern or a trend from your survey responses. So when you're not talking to your users, you're able to, when they ask you this, you already have the next question in mind. Okay, you're saying this, but why? Why would you do this? Why is this your preference? Why are you not going for this particular work, or why are you not going for this particular option, right? So you're able to then get that data. So you need to be able to mix both of them together and not be stuck on one, right? And not be stuck on one. Please, if you have questions, just drop them on the chat. I'm going to respond to them as thank you. So these are like a list of user research methods to use. So I have this picture here. First one is a moderated usability test. So you can see like the facilitator or the designer at the back behind this, just observing what he or she is doing. Facilitator is not saying anything. You're not guiding the person. You can only question the person when he or she is done. There are so many metrics and data you can gather from this. First and foremost, you're already timing the person. You give them a list of tasks to do, right? And you're timing them, wanting to know how much time they use on a particular task. You're also observing a lot of things, pain points, places where they pause. People are very, the reason why you observe people is, please, can we mute? The reason why you observe people is that what's their verbal communication, like verbal and non-verbal, like you're able to gather verbal and non-verbal communication. So you can just see people just sighing, wow, when they're using do you understand? You already know that there is a problem there. Do you understand? Which is what survey cannot give you, right? They're using it and they're, oh, fantastic, wow. You can expect, that's a wow moment, and you want to know why they were wow there, because you also want to push all of those things as part of your value proposition too as well. The next picture is like a focus group. You have plenty of people in the room, you're facilitating, gathering information, gathering data, and data that would help you, basically. Those are just a bunch of images I just dropped there to help you. So user metrics. Now we know the kind of tools we use and all of that, right? what are the kind of metrics that we can use? In different organizations have different metrics, to be honest, and you cannot, there's so many things to gather that you cannot, you have to be very deliberate about what you choose to gather, depending on your product, depending on what you're trying to achieve. Say, for example, Google, they have this HAT framework where they're just measuring happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and tax success. To them, metrics, the goal is this: users find the app helpful, fun, and easy to use, right? How can they measure that? How can you measure that your users are happy with your products? You get, it's not just by asking them, please, are you happy with our product? And they say yes. Users will say yes. They will say somehow, okay, we're fine, we're cool. Do you understand? Those are not exactly useful information. So you need to, all of these tools that we use, the surveys and all of that, they are supposed to help us gather metrics. So happiness can be measured for them with Net Promoter Score. How do you get Net Promoter Score? Remember I said some people will ask you things like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you want to recommend our services or products to somebody else? And somebody says 9, you understand? You can use that to then calculate your Net Promoter Score. So in your organization, you set your metrics, your Net Promoter Score standard as, oh, we want a Net Promoter Score of nothing less than 25. Then you gather your feedback and you use, because there's a formula for Net Promoter Score, and your Net Promoter Score is, say, 15. You already know that you are below your goal. Do you understand? You're already below your goal. So signals below your goal, right? So the metrics then helps you. It's informed. It's not just the interviewing them. It's the kind of metrics or the kind of insights you get from it. There is data, your research methodologies, surveys, interviews helps you gather data. Now, what do you make out from the data? That is where metrics come into play, right? It's not about just, oh, this person said no, they don't like this and all of that, blah, blah, blah. What exactly are you trying to get out of you? So they have happiness for them. They use Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction rating. You know, they use number of 5-star reviews. So on their product, you probably will just see rate us, and you click on 5. They're not just doing it randomly. They are using it. They're using the data. Trust me, somewhere. Engagement. Users enjoy our application content and keep engaging with it. Understand this. Your metrics is dependent on your goal. Your metrics is dependent on your goal. Do you understand? It's also dependent on your product. What kind of product? Are you using a B2B product? See, if you're using like a business-to-business product, the kind of metrics you probably want to gather will slightly differ from a B2C product. Do you understand? Engagement. For example, a B2B product, do you really want to use engagement? Engagement is cool, but if you're using a HR application, how much engagement do you really want to get from a HR application? Do you understand? I mean, I only use it when I need to fill my leave form. It's not a social application that I would. Do you understand? So you need to know your product, also then understand the goal. Oh Lord, this timing thing again. Please, people, please just bear with me, and I think subsequent season I will just ensure that this does not happen. Please just share with, can just rejoin with the same link again. Thank you. Thank you. Just going to see. Sulaiman, can you just